Come inside.
I wrote the song, turned the codes and the music.
Okay.
So what does it all mean?
Come and sit down. Here.
That Kurt Cobain's Fender Mustang guitar?
Oh, I don't know. Probably. I don't remember. I have so many things. I don't always worry what the message is. I just pass it along. I slip it between the notes, hide it away from people that know it's there.
You're saying you've done this before? Codes?
I wrote the music your dad grew up to. Half of what you sang along to as a kid, and I'm still doing it. And these teenagers are dancing to my music. I want it that way. Tell me why.
You're telling me there's hidden messages in old pop songs?
Movies, television shows, everything you know.
Why?
That's pop culture, isn't it?
You ain't never seen my movies?
The devil attempts to mock the Most High in so many ways, one of them being his thirstiness for credit and creativity. So he makes the love song singers sing odes of love to him. He makes the rockers create party anthems that encourage debauchery and fuel lust and violence, the same as he does for the gangster rappers, the lewd or sexually explicit rappers. They don't have to give him an ode per se, as long as they help to promote profane ideas in pop culture. So what does the devil do with the jazz musician? What does he do with this odd artist who's dedicated himself to the least popular of genres? Many musicians go into the jazz category, not only because of their refusal to play the simplest and catchiest and most common tunes, but also because they don't desire the pop life. So how does the devil drag them into this business? What do they do to honor him? The titles of the records, perhaps? Mr. Magic, Summer Madness, Nautilus. What makes these music compositions so magical? These colors do run. Yes, they run many things behind the scenes and many people as well. People who are propped up by pop culture too.
That has a satanic pentagram, a drop of human blood in the soul, the number 666, and the verse Luke 10:18, which says, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." On the box, we can see a demon, and this demon is known as Buer, the great president of hell that has 50 legions of demons under his command.
Wait, where have I seen this before? This odd demon with the lion's head. Can't quite place it. Now I recall where I've seen this spirit before. For years I've wondered what was on this cover. I thought perhaps it was a door decoration from one of those grand mansion parties that we've heard so much about. So now we know it is a depiction to honor the spirit that inspired this album, that inspired so many of us to want to flow intellectually,
What does this demon do exactly? Well, he teaches philosophy and logic. That doesn't sound so bad to me.
It's harder to accuse a jazz song of the songwriter's secret, but I think we just found one.
I'm one of the most sampled artists in the world. I think Nautilus has been sampled so much because of the groove. Yes, my little hook, but the groove, that's the magic. I was experimenting around with ARP synthesizers at that time, and I came up with some kind of weird atmosphere sound. The intro, and my producer, Creed Taylor, said, that sounds like a submarine to me. And I'm pretty sure it was Creed that realized that a very famous submarine was called Nautilus.
And let's just be clear, my next guest, without my next guest, so much of American music, America's only true art form known as jazz, would never have become as popular without the work of my guest. And that includes the fusing of Brazilian rhythms with jazz. It includes African American classical music on impulse, and it includes the fusion of electric and acoustic instrumentation with his own label, CTI. Without further ado, Creed Taylor.
On the way to the recording session, turn the radio on and see what tune was hot for the day, because that would be on the CTI label recording session for that day. I think one of the things that made the CTI label so successful was the covers. The covers were fabulous. My cover's got an Indian head nickel in a container.
We wanted to start a jazz label, but the guy we wanted is just signed with Verve. I said, so what? So he says, we love Creed Taylor because he makes such unique records.
And for about 5 years, I was part of a kind of a unique sound that took place for a bunch of reasons, one of which was their recording engineer, Rudy Van Gelder, who he had a sound of his own that was different from anybody else at the time. And our records just sounded that way. When people started to listen to them, they started calling it the CTI sound.
CTI Records founder Creed Taylor just recently passed. However, his impact on jazz will indefinitely last. He was a legend in the genre, but for this expose, we're going to look at his work producing Nautilus for Bob James. Here's Creed Taylor with Sammy Davis Jr., and Sammy Davis Jr. with Michael Aquino, accused Pedo, who became the head of the Temple of Set, which Dr. York was a member of also, and Anton LaVey, the head and founder of the Church of Satan, which Sammy Davis Jr. was a part of publicly for many years. And guys like Creed and Bob James didn't speak very much. They kept to themselves, so we couldn't find much on them, but this association I thought was interesting. They say birds of a feather flock together, and some folks, again, are better at keeping secrets than others. So I do think it's somewhat interesting that we can put Creed 1 degree of separation away from Aquino and Anton LaVey. And as for little Sammy Davis Jr., some go from brotherhood to brotherhood, seeking fame, power, riches, and protection. Yet after all their service, they end up a poor, former devil's imp at best.
Little did I know at that time that eventually Nautilus would end up finding its way into the hip-hop world. I'm told that it's up into the 1,000 categories, and I got to give credit for both Idris Muhammad and Gary King, who made it feel so good. My little bass line, it's one thing to write it, but until the right magical player performs it, that's what makes people's ears gravitate toward it. And I know for sure that that was at least one aspect of why Nautilus had a special something that caught your ear and that caught different people's ears because it was just different.
So many songs that suddenly make you want to flow feature the music of keyboardist Bob James. He is named in the top 3 of most sampled. Most producers in the know only place the catalogs of James Brown and the P-Funk Collective above Bob as most sampled. That can mean a lot of things. One would be that he was very talented and innovative, so much so that his playing could be called ahead of his time, exoterically. Or, said another way, he made so many songs that sparked our intellect. His were the samples that you immediately felt the pressure to display your most intelligent wordplay on top of. Arguably, Bob's album One contains one of the most sampled songs in hip-hop history, the very mysterious sounding Nautilus. The last song of the album One has the uncanny ability to spark you into rhyme. Now, Nautilus is not the only song that's been sampled of Bob's. So many note combinations which have been turned into samples have come from out of his mind or from out of the intellect within him. I don't believe that Bob James and Idris Muhammad and them were sitting around necessarily doing ritual. But whatever they did, it sparked a spirit that would live on in music that wouldn't come till 30 years later. Yes, he was an acclaimed jazz musician in his time, and he worked with many of the greats. But he became more acclaimed far after his time, even though he did a very famous sitcom theme song. Nothing is more famous from Bob than his samples, and no sample more famous than Nautilus, which comes off of the album entitled One with the Spirit of Beware on the front. We don't know for sure if he conjured this spirit, but we do know that like the rest of the devils in the Goetia, it can indeed be summoned. Now, like many musicians from his era, Bob James got the few toys and happy meal that the devil rewards his ministers with, but he does not appear to be wealthy. And he was ripped off from many hundreds of thousands, maybe millions in missing royalties. The industry he slaved within is like the snake that eats its tail. Nautilus was not a big hit, and the album did pretty good at the time, but with industry changes, it's impossible to track all the past records that used his music without paying him. Did the devil set him up to slave and create intelligent, intricate melodies in order to shape the mindset and genre that runs pop culture today? Don't be so gullible and game goofy. More than one thing can be true at a time. Jazz takes a higher level of musical intelligence, true. And it too can be used to influence. Test the spirit. Don't get carried away, quote unquote, by bat-like wings of reckless abandon. And make no idols of men or their gifts. Currently on Bob James' website, it shows him working with the group Foreplay. It describes their project as a spiritual listening experience, but no mention of the Messiah.
I would like to play a little tune I just composed not so long ago.
Miss Billie Holiday.
Bird.
The music called jazz.
This is a journey into sound.
Talking all that jazz.
Oftentimes when we speak about a topic, it can seem that we're ignoring certain aspects of that topic that are more nuanced. Some things are not so black and white. Actually, the gray area of certain subjects can actually truly be the rocky terrain you got to travel on to finally arrive at the destination of truth. So two things can be true at once. For example, The Marvel movie I enjoyed the most was definitely Black Panther. I could suspend or pause reality, and while watching in the theater with a paper and pen, I jotted down the Luciferian agenda-based themes that I saw while watching. I know that all entertainment is designed to unrefine the civilized and unshackled mind. It's crafted by the crafty, many of whom are secretly witchcrafty. But on the sliding, binding, winding scale that registers from savage to civilized to godly, I can say that there was a time when what was considered to be art, the avant-garde, the underground sound, was more civilized than savage like we find today. The golden era of hip-hop has been written and waxed poetically about by scholars and students of popular culture. It gave us phenomenal, unique interpretations of inner city life. It was truly an art form crafted by poets, griots, and rhymers who so happened to have been born and raised in the ghettos of the USA. The US has produced two distinctly different but interrelated free-form-based music genres, jazz and hip-hop. They met up in the late 80s and had a passionate love affair up until the mid-90s, until they were broken up by the sound which was the new kid in town, gangster rap. Gangster rap became the focus of mainstream media just at the same time that the counterculture of hip-hop was becoming the focus of modern pop culture in the American mainstream, coincidentally. Lyricism and originality was at its peak. There was an increase in the sophistication of the sound beds beneath rap albums. Sampling machines and, consequently, sampling techniques expanded. There was a trending wave of intelligent, empowering, and great-sounding rap music, and this wave was accompanied by an increase of abstract thought, both in and outside of the music. I remember that. I remember the hope and the vibe of being on code. This time, unlike in our parents' time or our grandparents' time, we'll get it right, we thought. We're going to swap out God and the old church in exchange for knowledge itself. We kings and queens. Hey, there were black Egyptians in the beginning. You must learn, and why is that? BDP, PE, X-Clan, everything telling us, take back this history. It's yours. Take it back. Take the magic back. This is your history. Take it back. Don't look into other history. This one right here. Focus on this history and try to take it back. It's like a trick bag. In hindsight, the very idea of an MC repping Christ was nearly unfathomable. Shout out to Fife. Oh, and MC Hammer. That was 30 years ago. And look at where we are now. Look at the so-called culture now. Can't say Christians are blocking your ability to take the magic back. Dr. Delbert Blair, R.I.P., couldn't even do it. Not Brother Coakley, not Baba Hemmett, Dr. Sebi, Dr. Phil Valentine, Dr. Phil, or Dr. York has been able to lead folks to empowerment through that old black magic. And I'm not villainizing self-awareness. I'm not demonizing knowing your history so that you are not doomed to repeat it. All these are useful tools for navigating through this world. More knowledge of the world frees your thinking, as none are more closed-minded than those who ain't been nowhere. But only more knowledge of the Most High frees your soul. The fear of God is the beginning of it. So jazz is one of my favorite genres. It's great to cook to, paint to, write to, and if music is a language, it is a higher form of speaking. The jazz musician has expanded his musical vocabulary. So by that respect, it's higher in its form of speak. Now, a man of wealth and means may have a higher form of speaking than another man. yet no Christ in his heart or mind. Yes, I sometimes prefer a higher level of speaking when engaging in conversation, but I don't get enchanted by the fair speech. I focus on what the spirit in the music is saying. Sonic let the cat out the bag with their pioneering hit Talking All That Jazz. They actually replayed and rearranged the bass line from a jazz record rather than just sampling it. Now, rather than ignoring the sound of jazz as background noise or elevator music, maybe we should pay more attention. Decode the language, and you will know what the music is saying. Use the title. Look at the cover art. Consider the players in the ensemble and their individual work, song titles, and album covers. These are the clues that no self-respecting occultist could resist leaving the uninitiated listeners. And it's a requirement. You see, that they have this duping delight that's irresistible to the brotherhood. They have a way where they like to show you their affiliation without doing so boldly enough where folks who have no inclination of what their signs and symbols mean would even pick it up. And they get a kick out of frustrating those of us who do see the signs and symbols. Plus, showing us it's just part of the working of their machine. You see, it keeps the game clean that the enemy must reveal himself in plain sight to those with discernment and insight. The devil is called the accuser. He's the prosecutor, and he's always looking to charge you as guilty. Guilty of seeing the devil's symbolism on something, but choosing it anyway. This is true ignorance. The proper pronunciation of ignorance. Ignorance is not simply having a lack of knowledge. Ignorance means you are ignoring something that's plainly in your face. You see, I can't ignore you unless I first realize that you're there. So don't ignore the signs and symbols that are all around you. And certainly, don't ignore this ancient and heavenly language that's been co-opted and hijacked by the prince of the power of the air. So yes, you find the SWS in jazz and everywhere. If you care, and you should, because spirits pass around.
Look at this.
This holiday season, York Records has a very special gift for you. Let Me Be the One on Christmas is Dr. York's 7-inch single release from his up-and-coming LP, Renew. Let Me Be the One on Christmas by Dr. York. Give it to someone you love. Available at all record stores or call 718-443-4417. Happy holiday.
Just as a spirit can pass from musician to tape, a spirit can also pass from person to person, from influencer to the influenced, from idolized to the idolater. Is this the reason why we see this culture now manifest itself in complete negativity and savagery? Yet we still defend it. The occult roots of hip-hop are real, the connections to Bambaataa, Bambaataa to York, York to Blavatsky, Blavatsky teaching straight Luciferian doctrine, hidden in New Age, a religion higher than truth, mumbo jumbo. And if you don't realize that it was a Freemason who influenced many of your favorite MCs, it was a Luciferian member of the Temple of Set, which was founded by Michael Aquino, who took the reins of hip-hop during this so-called golden era and steered it. So you have the spirit of this black warlock, and you have folks sampling pieces of music, looping a piece of music over and over and over again, repeating the energy within that frame of music consistently, over and over again. Repetition breeds habit. So before something manifests in the physical, it first manifests in the spiritual. This so-called fifth element or missing element of hip-hop is supposed to be the spiritual element. And I maintain from the things that we're able to look back upon now and discern that spirit always was there. It existed from the time that the Rainbow Crew disco clubs began letting young boys, these young B-boys and B-girls, come in and party when no one else would. Do you think they were really up to any good? Was there some ulterior motive beyond simple freakerism and debauchery? Was there an agenda, a spiritual agenda? A spirit was implanted into the music, not just through the sampling, but through the rhetoric. Now we understand that much of that rhetoric came from a man who we can not only connect most definitively to theosophy, which is New Age witchcraft, but also a man who's been accused of abusing young boys, young disenfranchised youth from the inner city who were just looking to have a taste of peace and love and having fun as it was advertised. Will realize that they had us hypnotized.
Can I be a smooth, my man Dr. York? I eat no pork, so why can't I be a smooth, my man Dr. York? I eat no pork, so why can't I be a smooth, my man Dr. York? I eat no pork, so why can't I be a smooth, my man
Dr. Malachi Z. York. I know y'all done heard of him. If y'all listen to Nas, y'all heard of him. The true author, like Dr. Malachi York was. Matter of fact, that's Jules Santana on the DJ Enough freestyle. Nas was like, they might clap me because I talk like Dr. Malachi York. So anytime you was hearing any Jules in the music, it was coming from Dr. York. He's teaching us what?
This is definitely a case that needs to be open. It needs to be open for all the public to see, for all the public to view, all the public to get an understanding, so we could get the right knowledge, the right wisdom, and the right understanding of what has happened to our brother, Dr. Malachi Z. York. And if this can happen to him, just imagine what can happen to you.